and then reinforces their progressive wing, but it's still a progressive wing that can be crushed any minute. We saw them crush Bernie twice, and Christopher Hedges and others. My dear brother Chris, he was telling me Brother West, you out there doing 112 events for Bernie the first time, 120 the next time. I love you to death, but I don't think you ought to be doing that kind of work because you got other energy can be done. I said, well, at this moment, this might be the best way to educate people, get people exposed to new ways of looking at the world and so forth and so on. But more than likely, he will get crushed because the neoliberals will come together. Get a phone call from Obama, Biden, Pete, Amy, boom, they all come together to crush him because in November looked like we had it. I mean, with Nevada, looked like we had a chance for a while, you see. But even Bernie himself doesn't have a substantive critique of imperialism. No, not at all. He's got a critique of right-wing xenophobic leaders in Israel, Netanyahu, but that's a very, very low bar.
Yep.
God, if I can't criticize Netanyahu, then go on and join Trump's party and just do it American style. And the Israeli left has no strong left either. And so the Palestinians find themselves subject to this vicious treatment of domination and occupation and subordination and subjugation. And you say, hey, was Palestinian baby got the same value as a Jewish baby or black baby or white baby, what Brother James was talking about? Not one, remember the Democratic Party can say one word? When 550 Palestinian babies are killed in 50 days, they can't say one word. That's sick. If that happened to Jewish babies, there ought to be voices, my voice, your voice, all of our voices would be heard for Jewish babies. Rightly so, because we care about Jewish babies. But when it's Palestinian babies, and it's just a few voices like ourselves, and no Democrats can say a word, then we know they're sick. Spiritually, morally, that is sick.
Hello, my friends. Hello, my family. We are back. We are back again. We are back again. Welcome to Revolutionary Blackout Live. I wanted to get started with that. This is RBN Saturday Night Live, and we are back once again. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed my super stream yesterday, our 3-hour stream I did with Q Anthony Amene and my brother Carlos Gallego. Always great to have other smart Marxists weigh in on the news. Hopefully you guys enjoy that format. I'm working on getting Carlos on with Q. We're going to do that again. We're definitely going to do it again because there's a lot to discuss. I have a lot to discuss today as well. Hello, my fam. Hello, my fam. Much appreciation. Big shout out to Joe here. Dr. Cornel West was a rock star during Occupy Wall Street. We come back from a march beat up and battered, and Dr. Westwood motivate us, and we turn around and go out and do it again. Fun, good times. Yeah, Dr. Cornel West pretty much was forced out of Harvard, denied tenure because of his position on Palestine, because he stood in solidarity with the Palestinian people. This is why I tell you people that I'm open about it. I'm a college dropout, right? But I will talk circles around an Alan Dershowitz on foreign policy, the same way I talk circles around Destiny on foreign policy. You don't need an elite education to see through the U.S. propaganda, because U.S. elite education is essentially indoctrination. Like if you come from elite academia, you're more likely to be a Zionist. That's where Yale, Harvard, that's their ideology. The ideology of Zionism, which we'll get in here very soon. The ideology of death and apartheid that the West continues to apologize for. Like once we get into this, you guys see this. Like this is crazy. Yeah, Q, my brother, my man, my martial art brother, very wise guy. Always good to talk to him. So hopefully we can do it. We can do it again soon. Hopefully we can do it soon. Dr. West and Chris Hedges did a kick-ass debate against the Wall Street bankers, and it was incredible. I should look up that video and share it. It was excellent. You guys see what Dr. Cornel West said in the video that I started with, where he called out the sickness of the West for not caring about the death of Palestinian kids. Do you guys know Israel killed an 8-year-old Palestinian? No, sorry, I think she's 5. A 5-year-old Palestinian child was killed by an airstrike. And the position of the U.S. government is, hey, Israel has the right to defend itself. And that is who Dr. Cornel West is talking about. And do you see 5-year-old? Yeah, she was 5. I misspoke the first time. I'll see you guys. Can you imagine how sick it is not to speak up on this? Rashid Tlaib gave a tepid statement on Strain Abdul Akala dying, but this should be your main level of opposition if you're a progressive. That's why Dr. Cornel West, he went on to explain that people like Bernie Sanders, he don't have a substantive critique of imperialism. That's something I've been saying for a while. That's something that here Michael Prenti has said. Somewhere around the 90s, he started going along with the NATO talking points. You see him expanding NATO and falling for their talking points as well, pushing a new Cold War with China. The main thing that we should be focused on as an anti-imperialist left, I love this comment here. Yeah, Israel defend itself against a 5-year-old. And Israel was launching these airstrikes because they was fearing retaliation. So they was having a preemptive strike. We're going to get into that very soon. And the West immediately is here to apologize. I'm going to show you guys some examples of the unhinged Zionists that I see all the time. So I think I'm gonna get ready to shift this. Yeah, Israel bombs Gaza. That's the topic we're gonna talk about right now. And the new axis of evils that I see is the United States, Saudi Arabia, and Israel. We look at the number one exporters of terrorism, the amount of people, the pure death toll, and the pure like they just don't care about international law. Like there's no Israel knows they are protected by the United States. All the time the UN have people that's calling out Israel, calling out their apartheid. Amnesty International calling out the apartheid state of Israel, the same way that Amnesty International called out the corruption of Zelensky. And the West always melt down, and then the United States always is the leading vote. It's always the leading power that protects Israel, and they're doing it again. The same people who melt down, and I think for good reason, I think you should care about victims of war, right? But it's a sick, gross hypocrisy to only care about the victims of war in Ukraine because of the proxy war that the United States support. Meanwhile, you're silent. Based on what I'm going to show you guys later, they're not only silent, they are cheering this on. These Zionists cheer this stuff on. They cheer the Iron Dome on. They are 100% okay with the ideology of apartheid. And Bernie Sanders and the progressives, they don't have a strong critique of that. Especially during this time where the United States is waging this Cold War, where they are being openly hypocritical. You have Nancy Pelosi going to Taiwan saying that we must stand up for human rights. She ain't going to Palestine, stand up for the death of Shireen Abdul Akla and this 5-year-old Palestinian child that was killed by Israeli forces. No, those are the unworthy victims. Apparently, if your interests align with the NATO West full spectrum dominance global political agenda, you are a worthy victim, right? This is the difference between someone who's a freedom fighter versus someone who's a terrorist. And the public sentiment is largely swayed by the fact that these Ukrainians are white. And you got Palestinians who the media is already portraying as ruthless terrorists who deserve to have the communities bombed. Like, imagine if in Ukraine there was this giant open air prison, right? Imagine Russia blockaded this entire area of Ukraine and created an open air prison of 2 million people. 45% of them are children. Then you poison their water supply. Then you continuously bomb them on a weekly basis in your open air prison. Then you do it today, killing 10 people, including a 5-year-old girl, dozens more injured, infrastructure ruined, being permanently displaced by Israel. But then the West will melt down and say that they deserve it because Hamas have they say Hamas have the audacity to respond because you guys are bombing Gaza. That's what they're saying. That's what they're saying right now. They are the unworthy victims. Let me show you guys the first receipt of the day. I'm gonna give you guys the face of the victim here. This tweet out by the Defense for Children. Israeli forces killed 5-year-old Ala Abdullah Viad Quadram today in an airstrike in the neighborhood in Gaza City. Her father and her 6-year-old brother were also injured in the attack. Hashtag Gaza under attack. Maybe I should scroll that hashtag a little bit. But these are the people that the United States is claiming Israel has the right to defend itself against. And you guys can see it. The unhinged ideology of the Zionists who are saying Israel has nothing to apologize for. Even though Israel just launched bombs into Syria and their neighbor as well. And you guys see how Saudi Arabia, they're ramping up their human rights abuses. Israel is ramping up their human rights abuses because they know they have this shield of immunity. They know that they have this hypocrisy where the West will always defend Israel. Meanwhile, they will put a magnifying glass on the small issues or the same issues they are guilty of in countries that they don't like Russia and China. You got Jim Crow Joe, the top cop, Kamala Harris. They're now advocates of criminal justice now that the Brittany Griner story is happening. This is the sick hypocrisy. This is my friend Asal Rod, who we're going to have back on the show soon. She got a book coming out. We love Asal over here. Look at the difference here. Palestinian militants fire rockets at Israel after Gaza airstrike. You guys see the chain of events here? And if you look at all the stories, I read a AP story, Associated Press story on this. And they was like, oh my God, how dare the Palestinians launch this attack after Israel bombed Gaza? And I was like, hold on. Wait, what was that last part you said? You mean after they bombed Gaza? So how dare they defend themselves? You guys see the ideology? This is the West. The West, they punch you in the face. And then when you retaliate, they say you are the aggressor. That's the same thing they're doing to China and Taiwan. That's the same thing they did with Russia. Break the Minsk agreement. Continue to expand NATO over and over. Put military bases around their country. And then as soon as Russia retaliates against the West, oh my God, look at the unhinged Putin administration in Russia. Oh my God, look at China escalating military tensions because we keep crossing their red line. No, I gotta have my tea. This is the other. Look at the difference. The same outlet. Outgunned, but defiant. Let me take. I think I gotta take that banner. My bad. I gotta take that banner away so you guys can see it. Sorry, you guys can see the whole thing. I'm just doing this on my own. But anyway, this is the first headline. Palestinian militants fire rockets at Israel after Gaza airstrikes. Palestinian militants. The tone is always extremely hostile in this imperialist propaganda hellhole that we live in. Now, in reporting on Ukraine, they say outgunned but defiant. Ukrainian twin cities, defenders ready for Russian attack. Israel is a country of settler colonialists who has been bulldozing Palestinian homes and have been encroaching on Palestinian lands, violating the ideology behind the two-state solution. We have two states of equal stature and power. That's been completely violated. The rights of the Palestinians have been completely destroyed, which have debunked the two-state solution. This is why we endorse the one-state solution. That's the only humane ideology to have. You need one state, in this case Palestine, because that was there, and Israel has no right to exist. It's a Western colonial creation. You got one state of Palestine, and everyone lives under one law and one rule. And you guys know how I would do. I think you will have a society that uplifts everyone, the lower classes. Make sure the working class is live in prosperity. That's the only solution. But when Palestine responds, they are called terrorists. But when the Ukrainians defend their homeland, which I say they got the right to do, right? It's a divided country. I think the West shouldn't have gotten involved in the first place. I think they bear the brunt of the responsibility about what happened in the Ukraine because their responsibility in 2014. But I'm consistent, right? I'm gonna share base North Korea here. This is the DPRK. They always on point with challenging U.S. imperialism. North Korea, once again, all facts here, whether you like it or not. Whether you like it or not, this is all facts. North Korea accuses misanthropic Israel of genocide, massacring children. They say it is no exaggeration to say the whole Gaza Strip has turned into a huge human slaughterhouse and a place of massacring children. Which they are right, because you will never see this in Western media, but North Korea has always been an ally to the Palestinian people and stood up against U.S. oppression in Cuba as well. They called out the oppression of the United States in Haiti. They called out the oppression of the United States, the war that they waged on my community, the Black community. So, once again, they are on point, calling out our country. This is low key. Israel has just killed 8 people, including a 5-year-old girl in Gaza. The impunity is such that Israel can carry out an extrajudicial execution inside a residential building and post a video of it with zero commendation by Western liberals. They're so focused on attacking Putin, they have no criticism of the apartheid state of Israel. Low-key always been great at calling this stuff out. Here's another one by my friend Danny Haifong. You guys know our community always on point. And I'm not going to allow them to devalue our lives where they value the lives of Ukrainians. And they look at the war that the United States waged against Black lives, which Amnesty International and the International Criminal Court said that is a crime against humanity. And they are arming this genocidal state in Israel. You got the United States sending troops in Yemen right now. The United States Army being responsible for multiple genocides. And then they want us to keep our eye off the prize and have Putin derangement syndrome while Israel is doing this. to my brothers in Palestine who always had solidarity with the black community. The George Floyd mural, they stood solidarity with the Civil Rights Movement and the Black Panthers, and there was a long time mutual respect. They also stood in solidarity with the South Africans who went through their apartheid that the United States and Margaret Thatcher supported. So once again, you gotta have discipline. You gotta have your eyes on the prize. You gotta realize who's your enemy and who's not. If you look at the colonial flags in Africa, there was no Russian flags, no Chinese flags. It was the West that was plundering Africa. And then they established an organization called NATO so they can legitimize their colonial power and dominance, which they still do to this day. They're bankrupting African countries. They're essentially telling African countries right now that it's being starved because of their sanctions. They're saying that you got to follow our geopolitical agenda or we're not going to give you any aid. This is the geopolitical agenda of the West. Anti-human. This is why the West continue to go with China. They're demanding loyalty from the Africans. And people want us to worry about Putin. They're not the one who is stealing our resources. China is building. They have forgiven debt in Africa in a large amount, while the IMF is bankrupting countries left and right. Just did to Somalia again. NATO has no reason to exist. Yes, sir, except to prop up U.S. imperialism. Palestine versus everyone. We got their back. The International Criminal Court just got sanctioned. They also claim the right to extradite war criminals is prosecuted. There's your U.S. position in a nutshell. Jesus. I need to read more about them being sanctioned. But we already know the United States don't really recognize them because we are a country of war criminals who have the moral high ground over nobody. Right? Google how many U.S. politicians have dual citizenship with Israel, and it will blow your mind. Now you got a pretty good idea of how AIPAC truly works. Our country, there was a whole meltdown over Russiagate, and I'm like, bro, we literally got AIPAC right over there. We literally got politicians doing the bidding of Israel, literally giving away all ton of resources to Israel, a country that has single-payer health care. They got free college, but we subsidize them and arm and facilitate the funding of their Iron Dome while our people starve. That is only possible in a corrupt government. That's only possible in a corrupt government while they will ignore American people starving while they continue to arm this country and they continue to subsidize this country where they got health care. They got free education, which is good for them, right? This is Danny Haiphong. Israel is bombing Gaza again. Nancy Pelosi nearly set off world war with China. NATO is instigating war with Russia on behalf of the United States. Our society is barbaric. That we're saying. Western civilization is barbarism. We have the moral high ground over nobody, which is why I'm confused. I got all these NATO stands and Western chauvinists who they were confused by my existence because they were like, why are you so focused on calling out your own state? They think that's not a worthy pursuit because our own state is the height of contradiction. Let's continue with let's get into some scumbag Zionist takes, right? So let's go back to Israel bombing Gaza. I'm going to show you guys, as I like to do, the unhinged ideology of people who disagrees with us. So this is the response of this person who I'm sure is a bootlicker for Zelensky and the Ukrainian heist of the working class. He says, Islamic Jihad fired more than 100 rockets at Israel from Gaza Strip today. Let's be clear. Israel has the right to self-defense and the right to stop terrorists targeting civilians in their homeland. This is an urgent time to support Israel and stand by our ally. You see how they just completely brush over the fact that Israel is illegally seizing Palestinian land and bulldozing their homes, that they are killing their people, executing their journalists with impunity. They just killed bombed Gaza. You guys see the ideology of the West, where their axis of evil, the United States, Israel, Saudi Arabia, UK, they can do whatever they want, and then if anyone retaliates, as you will have the right to do if you're a victim of a war crime, they will call you a criminal. They'll call you a jihadist for doing the same thing they're cheering on in Ukraine. I wonder why. I think the United States and a lot of these ruling class people, they just care about U.S. interests first and foremost. But I think the reason why the propaganda works is because there are a lot of Americans who are more sympathetic to the white, blonde, blue-eyed Ukrainians, but they see Palestinians, as this guy is highlighting, as jihadists. They see them as terrorists. A lot of Christians in this country, they won't ever support these Palestinians for their extremist ideology of the fact that they believe that Muslims should be purged from Israel. It's extreme ideology. And we need to start calling it out instead of pretending that these are people that we should even pretend on our side, instead of taking the side of people who are victims of U.S. imperial power. If the poor and working class are my people. That's my friend. That's a great comment. Damn, I lost it though. Yeah, classifying a 5-year-old as a terrorist, that's Israel for you. Israel launched a preemptive strike on Islamic Jihad to prevent a future attack. This is what they literally say. They said, we of course we did this to stop a future attack. And our Western media just reports it uncritically. And then when Palestinians retaliate, they call it aggression and terrorism. Why is no one, everyone in left media should be calling this out? Why are people being distracted by the enemy, the liberal establishment and the conservative establishment want us to focus on? Hey, boo, look at China. Oh my God, look over here, look at China. Oh my God, look at Russia, look at Putin. Meanwhile, they are literally committing genocide in Yemen, in Syria. Like, you got Israel bombing Syria right now, bombing Gaza. They got open air prison, the largest open air prison in human history. Once again, you gotta have revolutionary discipline. You gotta have your eyes on the prize. You gotta have your eyes on the prize. Let me look into some base Claire Daly. Base Claire Daly, because you guys see the unhinged Zionist take. And I'm gonna show you guys some takes on the Iron Dome as well. Because you guys know my position, but we can go over it once again. Here's Claire Daly. Base Daddy. I have to look overseas because I told you guys I go after Bernie Sanders and the squad a lot, but I wish I can quote Bernie AOC and the squad on these kind of things, right? But I got to keep looking to Lula, right? I got to keep looking to Claire Daly. I got to keep looking at Jeremy Corbyn. I got to look at other leftists across the sea in order for us to find someone who's willing to speak truth to power, that has power. Claire Daly's one of them. So who she's calling out? She's calling out this guy. Joseph Vontelis. He's a representative of the EU. Bro, I tell you, the EU, they are gangsters. And Mick. Yeah, Mick too. I just covered Mick in our live stream yesterday. But she just called him out. She said, so this is what Joseph called Israel has the right to protect its civilian population. Seriously? Murdering grandmothers and 5-year-olds? And then there are no calls for the EU to sanction the apartheid state of Israel. No calls to send arms to Gaza. So people can... there's this massive call. We got to sanction the working class of Europe and America and of Africa. We got to starve the global working class because we must defend Ukraine. But there's no cause for Gaza to defend himself from this insanity. This is what she's calling out. Woo, God damn. Look, this is the bombardment. This is a psychopathic state. Do these people look like terrorists to you? They don't look like terrorists to me. Do you guys see the hollowness of liberal ideology? That's why we continue to call it out? Because like Dr. Cornell West said, it's sick. It's sick to call out the victims of Russian war crimes because of your geopolitical Cold War agenda, but you're not willing to call out Israel for murdering a civilian population in Palestine? Even if you accept their argument, which I don't, but even if you will say, oh my God, they got to stop the terrorists in Palestine. They're bombing civilian populations. They're assassinating journalists. How is that anti-terrorism? They just keep making up terrorism. And that's what the United States do as well. Israel learned. They would bomb some civilians, right? They would terrorize a village, like WikiLeaks showed the United States have done. They went to villages in Iraq and Afghanistan and slaughtered people. Spreading freedom, right? Fighting terrorism, just slaughtering people. We got a prison in Guantanamo where we just torture the shit out of people. A lot of these people completely innocent. We got, because of Afghanistan warlords, once again, something else that was revealed from WikiLeaks and the Afghanistan papers, we had no idea who we was fighting. We was torturing civilians. And since torture doesn't work, they didn't get the answer they want, so they just torture these people to death. That's what we do. And if anyone fight back, we will say you the offensive. These people, these sick people. And we are such an abused and propagandized society that there are plenty of liberals that are wondering why I'm calling out my own government that is doing this. They are so confused. Why aren't you calling out Russia? Why aren't you helping us achieve our full spectrum? Because I am governed by psychopaths. My taxpayer money is funding Israel, this psychopathic state. U.S. leaders keep promising they'll close Guantanamo, and none of them do. Barack Obama promised it. U.S. leaders are such liars. Well said. Well said. Let's go to another person from the UN. I told you, these people, they be calling out. There's a few people in the UN that will call out Israel, but the United States always be the number one barrier. Just like the UN resolution to condemn Nazism. You want to know the only states that voted against it? The United States and Ukraine. What a coincidence. So this person, Francesca Albanese, human rights lawyer. She used to be a UN official. Okay, so I correct myself. So she used to be a UN official, human rights lawyer, UN special rapporteur on the occupied Palestinian territory. So I guess she's one of the few allies that Palestinians got in the UN. Even people, I was saying, people call out Israel all the time. Like Cuba calls out Israel all the time. The DPRK calls out Israel all the time. China did a scathing rebuke of U.S. and Israel relations many times. It just our media propagandize people so much they don't see it. Francesca says, I condemn Israel's airstrikes in Gaza to allegedly deter Islamic Jihad, possible retaliation for its leader's arrest. As international law only permits the use of force in self-defense, Operation Breaking Dawn is a flagrant act of aggression, illegal, immoral, irresponsible. Well said. And that's common sense. What Israel is doing to the Palestinian people, it completely destroys the narrative that the United States is standing for people who are victims of imperialism in Ukraine. They are sacrificing the Ukrainian people, in fact. They are sacrificing the people in Ukraine in order to weaken Russia. The UN chief just said Russia must not win, no matter what. I'm going to cover this here very soon. They're going after Zelensky now. I wonder why. We're going to get into that very soon. Getting back to the hypocrisy of it all, you have these insane people that are calling Hamas and Palestinians terrorists because they have the audacity to fight back. This is the Iron Dome, the offensive military equipment that the squad voted to fund more, by the way. And I explained this multiple times. The Iron Dome is not defensive because it is being used by an offensive settler colonial society that is pillaging the Palestinian people, that is launching offense into Palestinian territory. So even though they're used to deflect Hamas rockets, right, that means nothing because it's like, imagine if someone had a shield, but they had a sword, but they was going around stabbing people with their sword. Will you say that shield is a defensive weapon? No, that shield is used in order to make them more effective at stabbing people. So you can hold people off, you can stab more people. That's the Iron Dome. The Iron Dome is the shield that Israel used while they are launching bombs into Gaza, which is their sword. Which is why leftists and anti-war activists oppose Iron Dome. Instead of having the Iron Dome, how about you seek peace? How about we seek a one-state solution where you guys are not even bombing Gaza and you had to worry about retaliation? Because once again, this was Hamas and Palestinians' response to Israeli bombing Gaza. And then you have these sickos. This is Richie Torres. He was one of those people that was running as a progressive congressman in New York. Thank God for the Iron Dome, which I proudly voted for. Defending civilians from indiscriminate rocket fire. That's a lie, not indiscriminate. It's not indiscriminate. This is a response to Israeli aggression, them killing journalists, them seizing the homes of Palestinian people, and them bombing civilian areas like shown here. Which you guys say the Ukraine had the right to defend themselves, but you guys see this open hypocrisy by the West, which is dangerous. So, I love, I have a mutual here. Shout out to them, Janice. They've quoted Malcolm X here. The Zionist argument to justify Israel's present occupation of Arab Palestine has no intellect or legal basis in history. There's no intellectual, there's no moral, or there's no legal basis to justify the apartheid state of Israel. That's what Malcolm X said. So let's get into what I'm talking about regarding the Iron Dome and this whole Zionist meltdown regarding Hamas rockets. And I'm going to help debunk this. Once again, Palestinians are an occupied people that are victims of settler colonialism. This is not a complicated issue like many people pretend it is. Israel is a state that was invented by the West that became the same thing they claimed they wanted to fight against, right? The Jewish people, unfortunately, were victims of Nazi hate crimes and anti-Semitism. And then the West created this Israeli state that essentially doing the same thing to the Palestinians. So this is the Western hypocrisy regarding Palestinian self-defense. So Norman Finkelstein is literally a son of Holocaust survivors, and he's been banned from mainstream media. The West hates him because he exposes Israeli propaganda all the time. So I'm gonna show you guys this clip. Let me take this off, and I'm gonna show you guys this clip from Finkelstein against to the whole Iron Dome and Hamas rockets, Zionist propaganda they always hit us with.
First of all, as a factual matter, let's set aside the quality of the weapons. The weapons are basically symbolic. They're the equivalent of fireworks. As Khalid Michel put it at one point, the head of Hamas at that moment, he no longer is, he says they're our cry to the world. You know, it's a kind of, if I can use my language, it's a kind of SOS. They're sending these flares into the air. SOS, we're dying. SOS, we're dying. That's not an exaggeration. When Mary Robinson from the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, when she went to Gaza in 2008, she said, a whole civilization is being destroyed. I am not exaggerating. A whole civilization is being destroyed.
Okay.
So if you send up flares saying SOS, we're dying, which have next to zero impact on civilians, next to zero, I think whether or not they're discriminate or indiscriminate, it's beside the point.
To criticize Hamas.
But Aaron, you're really mixing cause and effect. You say it's going to provoke a response. They were provoked into responding. It's Israel that breaks the ceasefires. They were provoked into responding. Right. And then what are they supposed to do? As long as the people want it, I supported 100%. They have the right to resist that Mongol army.
No challenging the right, but again, the question is...
It's not politically expedient. It's not politically prudent. I have no doubt about that. But I will never tell a person in Gaza, you don't have the right.
Fair enough.
I won't ever tell them that.
If the people of Gaza...
When I hear you tell Jews they don't have the right to use, maybe for all I know, the Warsaw Ghetto, they were using indiscriminate weapons. Who the hell knows and who the hell cares?
Wonder if I can find some more clips on Norman Finkelstein, because he's always great on this issue. He was on point. Finkelstein. I want to see if I can find. There's a clip in particular I'll find, but he's always great. Here, let's watch this one. I want to watch one more because he's always good. I'll find this one. Let's watch this. Let's watch this Norman Finkelstein clip. Let's watch this one.
The EU said of Israel, it's a crazy country. It's like a junkie. Every few years they go to war. They need their fix. They're lunatics. American Jews don't want to defend that.
Yeah, Israel is carrying on in a lunatic fashion. I would like to ask you.
And Hezbollah, who you went to meet?
I would like to ask you, name me another country in the world. 2003, Israel was the cheerleaders for the war in Iraq. 2006, it went into war in Lebanon. 2008, 2009, it attacked Gaza. Now it talks about attacking Iran. If you read the Israeli papers every day, they talk about, should we attack Gaza? Should we attack Lebanon? Should we attack Syria? Name me another country in the world that falls into that category.
Well,
that's a lunatic state.
Israel would point to a number of its neighbors and say exactly the same thing.
No, you show me how many countries has Iran planned to attack? No, let's ask a simple question. How many countries in the last 10 years has Iran attacked?
When you look...
No, that's a fair question. How many countries in the last 10 years has Iran attacked?
The history of Israel, Do you not have some sympathy or understanding, people would ask, as to why they feel threatened and
Well,
why
we're not
they
talking about why
consider...
they feel threatened. We're talking about a country that every 2 or 3 years goes to war. And if you follow the press as I do, every day they talk about let's attack this country, let's attack that country. That's not normal.
So,
and when I call it a
so
lunatic
why
state,
is it that the Israeli people vote in this government that you say is responsible for that?
I think it's a regrettable fact. I don't say these things with glee. I'm not happy about that fact. As the American economist, the Nobel laureate Paul Krugman, put it in the New York Times last week, he said it's perfectly obvious Israel's headed towards national suicide. It's become a crazy state. And he says it's not good for Jews, it's not good for the world where Israel is headed.
And yet it's still seen, of course, as the safe haven, the homeland for the Jews. Well, you have a right to live there, although you're banned. Right. Would you
I
go
think
back?
That's a contradiction in terms, but we'll leave that aside.
You guys see how desperate that anchor was to defend Israel with no criticism at all of their state? And what Norman was saying was on point. Joe Biden broke a campaign promise. I know, surprise, right? Where he said he was going to get into the Iran deal. Now he said it's unlikely that he's going to get back to the Iran deal. Let's see if I can find it. Joe Biden. Here it is. Let me show you guys this. This was a direct violation of his campaign promise. And one of the reasons why this happened was because of pressure that came from Israel. Israel has fought the Biden administration. And one of the reasons why AIPAC funds Congress so much is because they fund Congress members who are willing to escalate tensions with Iran. Israel has been calling for preemptive strikes into Iran. Israel has been so crazy regarding their opposition to Iran that even the United States is like, whoa, pipe it down, buddy. Whoa, the fuck? We got a long-term plan to destroy Iran slowly. We want to torture them. Israel like, I'm itching to go. I'm itching. Let's bomb Syria. Right? It's always Israel that's the aggressor, which is why I call them out as the axis of evil. Saudi Arabia, Israel, United States. And you can throw UK in there, right? What do you guys think about that, chat? Should I throw the UK in there? Maybe. But the axis of evil is cooler with 4 people. Right? With 3 people instead of 4, right? I see you guys asking for the crocodile tears. All right, let's do one more. I know you guys don't mind me just showing normal Finkelstein clips for a minute, right? I see some people asking for it. I know it can't be hard to find. There it is. There it is. You guys want to have fun? Let's do it. I see everyone in the chat asking for it, so let's watch it. Based as Norman Finkelstein. Let's watch this video.
During your speech, you made a lot of references to Jewish people as well as certain people in your audience, not Jewish people in general, but certain people, especially in your audience, to Nazis. Now, that is extremely offensive when certain people are German, and they're also extremely offensive to people who've actually suffered under Nazi rule.
I don't respect that anymore. I really don't. I don't like and I don't respect the crocodile tears. I don't like to play the foreign audience the Holocaust card. But since now I feel compelled to. My late father was in Auschwitz. My late mother, please shut up. My late father was in Auschwitz. My late mother was in Majdanek concentration camp. Every single member of my family on my father's side,
the Jews did not take arms against the
my late father was in Auschwitz concentration camp. My late mother was in Majdanek concentration camp. Every single member of my family on both sides was exterminated. Both of my parents were in the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. And it's precisely and exactly because of the lessons my parents taught me and my two siblings that I will not be silent when Israel commits its crimes against the Palestinians. And I consider nothing more despicable than to use their suffering and their martyrdom to try to justify the torture, the brutalization, the demolition of homes that Israel daily commits against the Palestinians. So I refuse any longer to be intimidated or browbeaten by the tears.
Yes, sir. That's probably one of the greatest clips I ever seen. And can I make a plea that may piss some people off? Can we stop? Can we start rejecting these white tears that is used to apologize for offensive acts? And I'm sorry, I'm saying this as a black man who that shit terrifies me. You guys know that white woman crying act? Have you guys seen the TikTok of the white women who they show how fast they can go from pretending crying to being straight? You guys want to see what the most terrifying thing as a black man that there is? What caused Emmett Till being lynched? She's still alive today. Look, check this video out. I'm gonna show you guys. This is exactly what that white lady did. This is exactly what she did. Look at this.
Turn it off.
Y'all see that? That's the scariest shit to us. That's the shit that get us killed. You know when the Karen called the cop at us and then she do this fake crime routine and all of a sudden we got bullets in our back? You guys want to see it again? Huh? Let's watch it again. Because that's the same thing that Zionists did in the Norman Finkelstein video. Let's watch it again. It's only 15 seconds.
Turn it off.
The reason why I'm playing that because that's what the lady did to defend the act of settler colonialism. As soon as Norman Finkelstein started to call her out, you see how she started crying? They always do that. It's a very dangerous weapon. It's a dangerous weapon, and they use it to defend imperialism, as you guys see with Norman Finkelstein. So let me guys show you our last receipt of this story. It's crazy. I did not plan the main story to be an hour, but here we are. Here's my last receipt. Here's the United States essentially saying that they support apartheid. So I'll show you guys the 5-year-old girl that they killed and how the airstrike they launched in Gaza was a preemptive strike. They was killing kids and said they want to do that to prevent terrorism. And the response of the United States is to say, the White House National Security Council spokesman tells me, we are monitoring developments in Gaza. We urge all sides for calm. And then they, after saying that we urge all sides for calm, they say we firmly believe that Israel has the right to protect itself. What? What kind of psychotic statement is that? Let me read it again. They said we are monitoring the developments in Gaza. They're watching the situation. We urge all sides for calm, but we believe that Israel has the right to protect itself. The last statement contradicts the second one. When you say, we believe that everyone should be calm, but then you say, well, Israel has the right to start preemptively striking you guys. You guys see how that contradicts itself? This is coming from the United States National Security Council, the executive branch. Look at this cartoon. You see the destruction of Israel, what they do in Gaza. And then the United States State Department will say, well, I know they're killing kids. They killing journalists. What can we do? They had the right to defend themselves. The same thing with the Nancy Pelosi Taiwan visit, where they get mad at the victim for punching at the people who are escalating the situation. Israel launched a strike against Palestinians, and then Hamas rightfully retaliated, but they're the bad guys. Anyone who goes along with this shit is unforgivable. So we're about an hour in. I think that's good for that story. Let's I guess I really need to get to the story. I want to get to the other story. That was pretty deep. That was a deep story. The next one shouldn't be that bad. I want to show you guys how once again the Democrats are failing the working class people, right? They was proposing this bill that was supposed to limit drug prices. And this was supposed to be a big win for Jim Crow Joe. He's supposed to stand up against Big Pharma and the Big Pharma industry. But unfortunately, the Senate parliamentarian strikes once again. I'm gonna read the headline. Dems plan to limit drug price inflation faces test in Senate. Attempts at price controls have to conform with the parameters of the reconciliation process they're hoping to use to pass the social spending package on a party line vote. Which even Bernie Sanders was calling these things out as a giveaway to corporations. They got a climate bill that is essentially they get a ton of subsidies to big oil. And like, hey, can you guys help us with climate change? Here's a ton of money. Thank you. Any climate activism without class struggle is just gardening. If you're not challenging the military-industrial complex, you're wasting your time. This is let me show you guys this tweet here. And then I'm gonna show you guys what they buried deep in the article. This from Alice Miranda Olstein. She's a healthcare reporter at Capitol Hill. She says, as we flagged might happen back in November of last year, Democrats just learned that the Senate parliamentarian. I gotta change the banner because the Senate parliamentarian strikes once again. They got their excuse. It's curious how the Senate parliamentarian never strikes down the additional aid to Ukraine. $550 million more that we sent to Ukraine, by the way. So the Senate parliamentarian nixed their plan to penalize drug companies who hike prices faster than inflation outside of Medicare. We saw early one of the first things the Biden administration did was get rid of a Trump era policy. He got rid of a Trump era policy that kept insulin prices in the middle of a pandemic. He got rid of that. Big Jim Crow Joe, he's the sucker of Wall Street, right? So he had no intention of ever challenging these people. And the Senate parliamentarian, as we explained many, many times, is the rotating villain. Let's go through this. At issue is Democrats' push to penalize drug makers if they hike prices of medicine faster than inflation, a provision Republicans and the drug industry see as government overreach, and they say a violation of the Senate parliamentary rules, considering the bill as a non-budgetary item. The Senate parliamentarian strikes once again. And the Democrats, they really don't have much of a plan. They always saying we still have to go through the parliamentarian. This Democrat, he's the Senate finance chair. Even he said we still gotta go through the parliament. You see how they still bullshitting you? You see how they're still going through this bullshit theater? We still gotta go through the parliamentarian. This is the part. This is the key part. You guys see this? if you guys don't know, the Senate parliamentarian just recommends. The Democrats can just sidestep it whenever they want. But look at this. Democrats have no clear backup plan if the price controls for private insurance are struck down. So once again, they are pretending to fight something. They're pretending to fight rising drug costs. And then the Senate parliamentarian jumps in and they're like, oh shit, the Senate parliamentarian, they shut it down. They got no backup plan, according to Politico. And that's why you see mainstream media pundits like Jelena Maxwell, Paul Krugman, all of them are pretending that there's no recession. Drug prices are under control. People are not hurting. Joe Biden continues to fail on another campaign promise of reducing drug prices, just like he failed to get out of the Iran, just like he continued to stay out of the Iran deal, breaking his promise that we just covered. Over and over again, he's breaking his promise. And that's our job to call that out. You got people pretending that Russia is this only unhinged state that has these tight drug laws, which I don't agree with. I told you, unlike these liberal two-party duopoly bootlickers, I told you guys I'm not here to apologize for a state, right? So even when I look at China and their goal to expand Marxism and socialism, there's a speech I got to show you guys with Xi here recently where he talks about what Marxism means in the government of China. I don't personally find it necessary to have a harsh drug policy, right? But the only thing I can do is hold my government accountable. I don't see how that's beneficial to a global working class movement, right? But you got Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, the people who I can hold accountable, who are continuing to wage a drug war. This is, many people will point this out. This was his campaign promise. Biden campaign urges voters to tout his marijuana decriminalization pledge in social media posts. And I had a conversation with many of these vote blue no matter who zombies, where they kept quoting me his platform. And I said, you think Jim Crow Joe's going to destroy the system that he created? And people thought I was crazy because I was willing to call out a politician who had a long-term history of lying, who have a long-term history of plagiarism, lied over and over again, lied about his economic background, his academic background. Now, the reality of Biden is federal cannabis arrest is up under 25%. So you have all these states, including red states like my own, that is decriminalizing marijuana, having medical marijuana, legalizing marijuana. But then Joe Biden is to the right of the Republican voter. He is to the right of red states that decriminalize marijuana. So, yes, if you ask me straight up, I'm not for the drug war in any state. I think it's unnecessary. But I am responsible for what our state is doing. We have rampant authoritarianism in our country. You can't have me focusing on China and Russia. You got these liberals that saying, oh, China and Russia are these authoritarian, oppressive states. Meanwhile, our country literally is forcing women to give birth depending on where they live. I live in Missouri, so that's a reality where we live now. Kansas, they gave it a vote. They allowed the proletariat to decide next door in Kansas, and they voted for it. So you had an authoritarian crackdown by evangelical fascists in this country, but you guys want us to focus on Russia and China? You guys see how ridiculous this is? You guys see how the liberals are unserious on the things they claim they are for? So this is a quick story I wanted to do. I could have put Jim Crow Joe strikes again, but you guys get the point. Yeah, I think I'll put that one again. Because I want to read, let's read a little bit of the article. Just give you guys information on Jim Crow Joe's new drug war. And Jim Crow Joe is proposing a new crime bill where he's adding 100,000 police officers. He's proposing spending as much. Actually, he's proposing spend as more, but it's around the same once you adjust for inflation. To be honest, but it's around the same as the crime bill in the 90s. Is what he's proposing now. Wait, and then I remember. I still remember to this day when I said I wasn't going to vote for Joe Biden. I told people there's no way I'm going to vote for someone who supported the crime bill. And then when I told people like Boss that, when I told a lot of these white liberals, a lot of these class loyalists, when I told these people that, they was like, "Oh my God, Nick, you just trying to find any excuse to disrupt the Democratic Party. Why are you bringing up old stuff? The Democratic Party changed, Nick. They changed." And this is why I had a hard divorce with a lot of these shit libs. Because I knew this was going to happen. You bring up the record of politicians because what they say on the campaign trail means literally fucking nothing. And I don't understand why that's so hard for people to understand. So I'm going to just read a little bit of this just so we have some more information regarding the story. After a dip during the peak of the pandemic in 2020, so around the Trump era, wrapping under Trump, there was a dip in cannabis enforcement. Not saying Trump was horrible because he should have ended the war on drugs, but then Joe Biden took over the empire and he looked at Trump and he's like, "Hey, you are an amateur. I'm gonna show you guys how this shit's done." He deported more people. Now he arrested more people for cannabis. Now he's escalating the Cold War and escalating World War III the same way liberals said Trump was gonna do, right? So now, and not anything to say, because Trump is garbage. I want you guys to be clear on that. But Jim Crow Joe looked at Trump and he said he can do better than him at what he does. And he has. Joe Biden has been way better than Trump. 25% more for cannabis-related crimes in 2021 during the first year of the Biden administration. Let's see if we can find some more nuggets. I think that's pretty good intro. But yeah, Jim Crow Joe does it again. Jim Crow Joe cannot help himself. Find someone who loves you the same way Jim Crow Joe loves locking people up for weed, right? Let's not rush to judgment, Nick. Always ask yourself, what would people do? He would fund the CIA more. He's a CIA rat, man. And you already know they try to prop him up for 2024. And I can't wait to see Bernie Sanders endorse him. Woo, man. Wait, just wait. You guys think the progressive movement is embarrassing now? Wait. Just wait till you got the Pete Buttigieg, Kamala Harris ticket. And then you're going to see AOC and Bernie Sanders doing rallies for them. Wait till we get to that point. I'm trying to warn people now before it gets too bad, right? Don't be that embarrassing, right? Let's I think I got a few more things I want to say. Yeah, I got one more story I want to do. I want to do a story on Ukraine. I got one more Ukraine story I want to do. I didn't get a chance to do this yesterday, so let's do this now. So let's set the banner up for this next story. Zelensky, corruption exposed. Amnesty International once again calling out Western liberal hypocrisy, right? And this is what we on the left have been calling out for quite some time now, of the war crimes of the Azov Battalion and the Ukrainian forces that the West completely is turning a blind eye to, because just like with Israel bombing Gaza, if you are friends of the West, you're allowed to do whatever you want, which emboldens these fascists, these horrific people to double down. And this is what Amnesty International reported. Ukrainian fighting tactics endanger civilians. Military bases set up in residential areas, including schools and hospitals. Attacks launched from populated civilian areas. Violations in no way justify Russia's indiscriminate attacks, which have killed and injured countless civilians, which is Amnesty International. And this is what really hurts shit libs feelings because they called out Russian aggression too on this war. So they can't say, and they still are. I'm gonna show you guys the meltdown in retaliation to this report, and a lot of media reporting on the corruption of Zelensky as well. I'm gonna just read a little bit of this here. Ukrainian forces put civilians in harm's way by establishing bases and operating weapon systems in populated residential areas, including in schools and hospitals, as they repelled the Russian invasion that began in February, Amnesty International said today. Such tactics violate international humanitarian law and endanger civilians as they turn civilian objects into military targets. So, as Scott Ritter explained, and many people that have been on the ground, Russia has had a slow measure approach in Ukraine. And then the West, they will use this slow measure approach because Russia, they don't want to kill their own people. Ukraine is 1/3 ethnic Russian. A lot of them have cultural ties to Russia. So they don't want to kill them. So they had this slow measure approach. But Ukraine has been essentially using human shields, putting civilians right in harm's way. There has been reporting from Telegram that showed Ukrainian military forces attacking people who have fled. They want as many civilians there as possible, so they can then turn around and say, "Oh my God, look at Russia targeting civilians," which is something I condemn, and that's just something that is a horror of war. Which is why we should be looking for peace right now. We should be trying to halt the expansion of NATO, halt the warmongering in the West, and seek for peace because of civilian casualties, right? Throughout these investigations, researchers found evidence of Ukrainian forces launching strikes from within populated residential areas. And there's been a lot of journalists that follow that have been reporting this. And then the ones who do are called Putin puppets. This Amnesty International. You got to appeal to authority because the imperialists always trying to use authority to push their own imperialist geopolitical agenda. They launched strikes from populated civilian areas. And then very well documented military bases in hospitals, military bases in schools, indiscriminate attacks by now they actually get into the Russian forces, which is essentially responding to the Ukraine putting Ukraine civilians in harm's way. And Amnesty unapologetically called this out, right? And the response from the liberals, as you could expect, has been insane. The people with Putin derangement syndrome, the people who are NATO simps, who are now trying to say, despite as I show you that Amnesty International is still condemning Russian attacks, but the fact that they call out Ukrainian war crimes, they're now saying that Amnesty International is infiltrated by Russia and Putin. And this was narrative that MSNBC, CNN was putting out. They were condemning this report. And if you look at all the mainstream media and how they report this, they was reporting this as some sort of controversy, right? Let me pull the right one. I think I lost. Here it is. I'm gonna show you guys one of the stories of the absolute meltdown of Amnesty International telling the truth. Here it is. Head of Amnesty International chapters quit. Russia begins attack, and all the mainstream media is reporting this as like this big scandal. And you had this Ukrainian Oksana. She's part of the Ukraine and Amnesty International chapter who quit because she herself is she emotionally invested on the Ukrainian side, obviously. And just having her organization call out the war crimes of your government is enough to make you quit. So all the mainstream media outlets been reporting this as a scandal. I'm like, well, she's biased here. And the same Amnesty International report literally highlighted how they don't agree and they don't approve of Russia's response in Ukraine. So here's our friend of the show. Here's Aaron Mate, because Aaron Mate weighs in on this. Here he is. Because here's the tweet, and if you go through this, it's unhinged. Here's Amnesty International. Their tweet thread of Ukrainian forces have put civilians in harm's way. So there's a tweet version of this. And the response by the liberal establishment and the NATO bootlickers was as intense as you could imagine, right? This dude said, I searched for a single amnesty tweet criticizing Hamas. These motherfucking shitlibs melted down at this. Aaron Mate said, incredible seeing Amnesty attacked for documenting what every independent observer had from the very beginning. Hell, he even quotes this old Washington Post article that said Ukraine's strategy of placing heavy military equipment and other fortifications on civilian zones. So let's pull this up. Russia has killed civilians. Their defense tactics add to the danger. This was in March. The Washington Post said that the defense tactics of the Ukrainians is making civilians more in danger, right? So you have Amnesty International calling them out. I even seen liberals starting to call out Zelensky. And I'm gonna put this out right now, because have we seen the mainstream media start reporting more on Ukrainian corruption, which I reported on the show? It's insane. We're now seeing that the media is reporting on the fact that Ukraine is corrupt. They don't know where the weapons are going. They don't know where the aid is going. But they did this after they already approved the aid and military package, right? So let's go back to Zelensky corruption exposed. Because now you're seeing the Western media turn against Zelensky. So let me say this, guys, and I hope this doesn't happen. But don't be surprised if you see Zelensky assassinated by Russian forces, because it seems like the West is tired of him. You had the UK, you had Boris Johnson that straight up told Zelensky in the Ukraine that you need to seek peace. You had Zelensky firing a ton of people in his government. There's actually this new report. I need to find it. I need to dig this up for this. Where Joe Biden, there's this schism between the White House and Zelensky that they don't want to really talk about. Well, they don't really trust Zelensky and the Ukrainian government as much as they let it on. The Ukrainian people acknowledge that the West is using them as a proxy or sacrificing them to Russia. Not everyone's down for it. Let's read this tweet. She says Zelensky is in big trouble. First, you had Amnesty International. Now, German mainstream media publishes evidence of a huge corruption and his direct involvement. In my opinion, his days are numbered from heroes to zero. So German mainstream media is calling out Zelensky corruption now. So I know I don't put anything past the West, right? If they need to escalate war with Russia and China more, and we already knew that Azov Battalion threatened Zelensky if he ever seek peace with Russia, and they also, I can easily see the West saying Zelensky was killed and assassinated by Russia. Then they can use that to escalate Russia too. So keep an eye on it, because I'm seeing the media turn against them more and more. Yeah, I want to show you guys the media who have literally posted pro-Nazi propaganda multiple times. I love that this guy called it out. The Globe and Mail, Canada's oldest and most prestigious national newspaper, just published a completely uncritical profile of the wife of an Azov colonel, trying to get you to feel bad for neo-Nazis. Completely uncritical. And this has been what the media has been doing for quite a long time. Cleaning up the image of the neo-Nazis in Ukraine. Downplaying their influence in their government. At the same time, they will call you Red Brown Alliance if you want to work with a Nazi Trump supporter to get health care, right? If you're a Trump supporter, you're a Nazi. But if you literally Azov Battalion, they do. You got the New York Times that do pro-Nazi propaganda. Look at this. The Ukraine version of Alamo. For 80 days, Russia met unyielding Ukrainian resistance in the apocalyptic siege at a steel factory. The battle for Azovstal has become legend. They are literally doing Nazi propaganda, glorifying the battle in which the Azov Battalion got their ass beat and were forced to surrender. Y'all see the point of the state, right? So I appreciate you guys for watching. I think we're about 90 minutes in. I hate you guys with back-to-back streams. And we got a JV show tomorrow. Nick and CJ on Monday. I got a lot of great guests that line up that's gonna come for you. That's gonna come here soon. Q's gonna be back. I got maybe with Carla Zai as well soon, maybe next Friday. And a lot more guests coming soon. Please like and subscribe if you guys enjoyed. Yeah, we did a 3-hour live stream. We did a 3-hour live stream yesterday, so I'm gonna keep this one to around 90 minutes. So I appreciate you guys for watching. We got a JB show tomorrow, and I guess I'll take this time to announce because we at RBN we tend to keep things low key. Josana will always be our revolutionary blackout sister, but real life, I mean, we are working class people. We are members of the proletariat. That's why we had the link to the Patreon below because they help us keep going. Josana is a real working class person. She really couldn't keep up and really she couldn't continue to stream with us because like she started with us, she was with us for a few months, but she had to get multiple jobs. She's struggling, and unfortunately, as a smaller channel, we don't make a lot of money here. So Josana will always be our revolutionary blackout sister, but she's pretty much taking a step back from streaming for a while. So much love and support to my sister Josana and everyone who's been communing with us. And you guys know what I always like to do. I like to do calls to mutual aid because that's something else that that we gotta continue to focus on. We're gonna continue to build this community, right? So yeah, I want you guys to get involved in the community. Don't just listen to us. Don't just get outraged at what we were talking about, right? Take action and get involved in the community, and that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna have Tour for the Poor, Kansas City mutual aid organization that starts soon. We're gonna make sure we can build a proletariat movement. We're gonna start here in Kansas City. There are many people on the left here that are excited to help us. So I'm gonna focus on that. So I appreciate you guys for watching, and have a good